Alright guys, welcome back. Some of you guys who've been paying attention might have noticed the 2 week gap in between me releasing any new videos, but I have been very busy bee in all various different aspects of life. So unfortunately I've just not had time to make any new content. However, I do have a ton of stuff that I'm getting through today and will be releasing in the upcoming weeks, so hopefully every week you should be seeing at least one new video from me now, and loads of you guys now have been sending me emails and leaving comments and all that kind of thing about like the topics you want me to cover, which is really cool. And I've not been able to reply to every single comment and every single email I've gone, so I am sorry if you've sent me a question or something and I've not gone around to you yet, but I have read all of them. So I mean, if you've requested a tutorial or something like that and it's something I think I can do, I've written them all down. I have a list that's like a mile long of tutorials and topics and things that I can get through. So that's leaving me able to produce content for a very long time, I hope. What I'm going to be looking at today is just adding another little feature into the platform little game engine thing that we kind of put together in my last in-depth tutorial on platform games. Is we're going to add a double jump feature, and I'm also, actually before I get into that, I'm going to quickly cover ceiling collisions, because I know that I left it out intentionally because I didn't think it was too important at the time when I was doing the other tutorial, but a lot of people have commented and said like, oh man, how do you get the ceiling collisions to work? Whenever you hit the ceiling, you drop down to the floor really quickly. I was hoping that it was kind of implied how you would do this kind of thing through the last tutorial, but I'll clear it up now just so that everybody knows and everybody's up to speed. So we're going to look at the ceiling collisions, and then we're going to look at putting a double jump in, just so that you can see how you can now work with this this engine that we've built using the last tutorial, and how you can start to add your own little features and touches to it. So first things first, we're just going to take a quick look at why this whole ceiling collision bug has been happening. If you've downloaded the code from the description in the previous video, or you've just been following the tutorial along and you've coded it yourself like exactly, you might have noticed when you try and put like ceilings into your game, or like walls above you, and you hit them, what happens is this: you get instantly warped to the floor whenever you touch them vertically. So in order for us to fix this problem, we need to first of all just understand exactly why it's happening and what's going on when we touch a ceiling vertically. So if we go into our step event and we come down to our vertical collision section, what's happening in our vertical collision section is we're saying if our y coordinate plus our vertical speed, which could be like -4 if you're moving upwards, or +4 if we're moving down. So if above us or below us we're about to hit a wall vertically, do this code. And then what this code says is, while we're not seeing a wall 1 pixel below us, move 1 pixel down, and it'll do that like continuously in a loop. Over the course of only just a single frame. It'll do this before it even renders the next frame. So it'll just constantly add one to our y coordinate until we do see a wall 1 pixel below us. So that means whenever we touch the ceiling, we're instantly warped to the floor, because it's adding 1 and adding 1 and adding 1 and adding 1 to our y coordinate until below us is 1 pixel below us is a wall, because while not place meeting, y plus 1 is a wall. So how do we fix this? We just need to make it more or less like our horizontal collision check, where we use sine husper instead of 1 to check whether or not we've hit a wall yet, and what it is we're adding to our y coordinate. So instead of y plus 1, all we need to do is type sine Vesper, and over here y plus sine Vesper, because what sine Vesper equals, as I went over before, is either 1 or -1, depending on if our vertical speed is positive or negative. So if we're going upwards, say at like -4 or whatever, and then or y plus -4, we see a wall, it will do this instead, and it will say, if we're not seeing a wall at y plus sine Vesper, and sine minus 4 is minus 1, so if 1 pixel above us is not a wall, then y plus equals minus 1, so then we move closer and closer and closer to the wall until we hit it. So we've basically just created that, and then the same thing happens when we're going down as happens before, because if we were moving down by like 4 pixels a frame, and we see y plus 4 equals the floor, then we say, well, while we're not hitting the floor by plus 1, keep moving plus 1 down until we hit the floor. So now, I mean, that'll work entirely. That's already solved the sort of ceiling collision issue in a sense, but I mean, the reason we didn't do it that way in the first place is because we need to set our grounder to 1 only when we're touching the floor. We don't want to set our grounder to 1 when we're touching the ceiling, because then we're not on the ground, we're just hitting the ceiling. It'd make it kind of possible, it'd be kind of like a 1 frame trick, because there'd only be 1 frame where you were technically sort of touching the ceiling, but it'd technically be possible to jump while you were on the ceiling, and kind of, if you were had this miraculous, like, insane human timing, you'd be able to sort of keep yourself on the ceiling by, like, continuously hitting jump. And as unlikely as that is, it's not something we really want in the code, just cleanness sake. It could introduce all sorts of weird bugs later on. So we only want to set our grounder to 1 if we're touching the floor. Now we could just do another collision check here, and we could just say if place meeting y plus 1 is a wall, then just set our grounder to 1. But it's a good idea generally to minimize your usage of place meeting and like collision functions where possible, because I mean, in this day and age it's probably not as much of a concern, but you generally don't want to do you don't want to do millions and millions and millions of collision checks, because they are kind of slow functions, and so it helps whenever you can do something that's a little bit faster. So something we can kind of do to get around checking the collision again is basically just see if our vertical speed was up or down, because basically if sine Vesper is 1, so if sine Vesper equals 1, then we know that we were moving down and not up. So after we've been shunted to the floor, we can just say if we were moving down, then set grounded to 1, and that'll solve the issue. And then afterwards we set our v-speed to 0, obviously, because we don't want to keep falling. So then, now hopefully when we run the game, when we come over here and we jump into the ceiling, yep, now the collision with the ceiling behaves much more how we would expect. Hitting the ceiling, we move upwards towards the ceiling, the game sees we're about to hit the ceiling, it moves as close as possible to the ceiling, and it sets our speed to 0, but it doesn't set our grounder to 1, because we were moving up at the time and not down. Whereas when we were moving down at the time, it sets our grounder to 1, which allows us to keep jumping. So yep, that's pretty much very simply how you solve that little vertical collision thing. You just basically write it in the same way we wrote our horizontal collision, using sine Vesper instead of plus 1, and you're pretty much sorted. So with that sorted out, what I'm going to do now is walk you guys through how we can kind of expand upon what we've got so far with our little platform game, and add in a feature like a double jump. So the very first thing we want to do is just take a look at how we're jumping at the moment. So at the moment, whenever we have the key, our jump key held down, we're seeing if we're on the floor, if we're grounded, which is handled by all our collision checks, then just set our v-speed to be -8, and then we fly up into the air, and then gravity takes care of the rest and we fall all the way down. So now if we're adding a double jump, I guess what we want to happen instead is if we press the jump key and we're on the floor, do this as we normally would, but then if we're not on the floor and we've pressed jump, we'll check another variable, and that variable will be if we've jumped already in the air again. So sorry, if we've double jumped yet, then do nothing, but if we haven't double jumped yet, then do another type of jump. We'll set our v-speed to be something slightly lower, -6 or something. So, very first thing we need to do is set up a variable for that. So if we go to our create event, and we'll set d-jump for double jump, I guess, to be, we'll set it to 0 to start with. And then if we go into our step event, a thing we need to change in our inputs is setting key_jump. Instead of being checked with keyboard check direct, which will check every frame if it's being held or not, is we probably want to set it to pressed. What that means is only check if it's just become 1 this frame and it was 0 last frame. Because otherwise, if you use direct and it's checking every single frame if you're holding jump, then what'll happen is chances are you're not going to tap and release space in a single frame every single time you press it. So that means if you're on the floor, you're going to jump and then instantly double jump in the air, and that's not really what you want to happen. So you want to make it so you press space and you jump, and then you press it again, like distinctly, in order to double jump. So we've set that, and we've set our double jump variable up. So now we need to come down to here where our jumping takes place, and we need to say, instead of what we have at the moment, which is if we're on the floor, v_speed equals 8, is, well, I mean, we do keep that, but if we expand those brackets just a little bit now, like so, just to give us a little bit of space to do an else statement. So if we're on the ground and we've pressed jump, then we set our v_speed to be -8, so we fly into the air. But if we're not on the ground, then we need to check if we've already double jumped since the last time we touched the floor. So if we say if djump, so if our double jump is 1, if it's true, then we can set v_speed to be -6, so we get a smaller jump than what we would normally have on the floor, but we get a jump nonetheless. And then we would also need to set our g_jump itself to be 0, so that we can't continue to double jump in the air. So that's that, and then all we need to do is make it so that whenever we touch the floor, our double jump is set back to 1. So just like over here, when we set grounder to 1, we can do this in the exact same place. If we just expand that bracket, so as well as setting grounder to 1, we set g_jump to equal 1. And then hopefully, all going well, now we can jump, and then jump again in the air. And we can only jump once in the air. So we jump once on the floor, once, and then no matter how many more times I hit space, we can't jump again until we touch the floor. What that'll also allow you to do, I guess, is when you walk off of the surface, is to be able to sort of do a falling double jump. So like I can fall up here and then jump back to get back on, but I can still only do that once. So because it's setting our d_jump to 0 the moment we do our double jump, and it's only coming back again once we touch the floor, and we're able to jump again and double jump again. So yeah, that's that. That's just a simple explanation of how you might expand sort of the platform code, and also just let you know how that ceiling collision thing works. So yeah, I hope that was useful. I'll catch you next time, guys.